Hello, Aya. This is your solving log equations assignment. I apologize for my voice. I've been a little sick this week. So you're doing a really good job on these questions. Your answers to the first few are exactly right. You're solving all of these correctly. There's just a couple of things I wanted to point out as we go along. So one of those things that I wanted to talk about was for a question like 2D, where you're solving for x, and the way that you're solving is by taking the square root of both sides. When you do that, the square root of 9 is actually plus or minus 3. So in the case of logs, you can't have a negative base because it doesn't make sense to have a negative base for a log. All the bases have to be positive. So using an answer of minus 3 would give us a log with a negative base, and so that's inadmissible. That's what we say when it's an answer that we cannot use for the solution. So when you come across something like that in these types of equations, you also need to state why that particular answer is not a good answer for the question. So you can say, you can kind of circle it, and you can say, no negative logs allowed, or something like that, to show that you understand why we can't include that as an answer. So there's one more example of that, I think further down, where you're testing your logs. Here's an example where you end up with x equals negative, and you should always remember your form, have an x equals there. You can't just write the minus 175, or 1.75, I'm sorry. So in this case, what you have to do is you have to consider what happens if we put minus 1.75 back in the bracket for x. And when we do that, we end up with positive 0.25. Since that's a positive number, then this negative answer in this case will work as a solution to the question. So you should always check as you're going along, and you should always show your check to explain that you realize why you can use a negative number sometimes and not others. My apologies. I see that you did do your check earlier on, later on, where I couldn't see the screen at the moment. Okay, so you did do that. For question 3, you've shown here that you can't find a solution, but you need to explain why. So give an explanation rather than just stating that there's no explanation. And the explanation here is that you can't have the negative base and get a positive answer. So there's no way that you can have negative 3 as a base to an exponent and end up with a positive answer like 27. That's just impossible. There's no exponent of x that will give you that answer. In question 4, you've done everything correctly up to this point, but be careful when you're matching up the different parts of your log to get your final answer. The log base 3 part is the same, so the x parts have to be the same. And so your solution should simply be x equals 54. Oh, my apologies. See, I told you I'm sick. I'm not thinking clearly. I thought that you had 54 to the exponent 3 there, but it's just 54, and that's your base from the previous line. My apologies. So that's absolutely correct. When you're testing your roots in question 5, you need to do 2 different checks. You need to do one where you use x equals 6 in both cases, so a 6 here and a 6 here. And then you need to do one where you're going to substitute a 1 in both cases, so a 1 here and here. In this case, 6 works and gives us a positive log, so 6 is a solution, but 1, you're right, does not give us a positive log in both cases, and so 1 is an inadmissible solution. And question 6, you did a great job. That's a great way to estimate and narrow down to one decimal place what the exponent might be without using a calculator. So good work there. Overall, really good work on this assignment. I can see that you have a really good understanding of logs and log equations. And so you're doing everything correctly, and that's an excellent assignment.